Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Stellman. Today, we'll be reacting to our Week 8 win, 24-20, over the Cleveland Browns. Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
Yeah, look, I don't know about you, but this may have been the hardest game I've had to watch all season. And that's saying something because I also watched the Rams game. So, um, yeah, look, really great energy going in. I think the crowd was behind us. We obviously had those two great drives for scores right out of the gate. And then it looked like the Seahawks were back to being the team that they've been for most of this season, which is where it doesn't look like we can put a drive together um, on offense. And that means our defense is out there too much and they start sputtering because the defense was doing great until they were out there backed and like almost it looked like they had just come off the field and were going right back on. And then they were tired. And I thought, okay, crud, this is how we're going to lose this game is we're just not going to be able to sustain drives and Cleveland's going to continue to force the issue. And the Cleveland look a team that has lost their starting quarterback, has lost their starting running back. Um, this is a tough offense. I mean, there are guys making plays out there. Amari Cooper is still Amari Cooper. He was one of my favorite guys coming out in the league. I mean, obviously, bad situation going to the Raiders, unfortunately for him. I thought, okay, now he's in Dallas. That's still a bad situation, but he'll look good, and he did. And then they traded him to the Browns because Dallas is doing Dallas things. But he continues. I mean, him and Brandon Cook, two guys that doesn't seem to matter where they go, they will put up offensive numbers. But yeah, I mean, until that interception by Julian Love off of the beautiful Jamal Adams header, um, this was a hard game to watch. So yeah, I know we're supposed to be going to the positive here. I'm going to leave that to you. Well, I'll get there. Believe me, I will get to some positive stuff. But the opening of this is, I don't know if I can do another 9 weeks of this Seahawks team.
Yeah, it reminds me of a few years ago where I swear they were trying to make me go see the cardiologist every single month because just highs and lows, and there was no in between. I'm right there with you. I mean, listen, the offense in this game put together one good quarter and the final drive, and that was it.
Yeah.
But
luckily,
hey,
that's all they needed.
That is all they needed. So, the game was going along. Kind of looked like it was getting out of hand. The defense had been on the field for 37 minutes. They were looking tired, and the Seahawks weren't doing that great. And the Browns were kind of handing it to them, right? The Browns were doing what they wanted to do with the Seahawks. And then right at the end of the game, the Seahawks said no. And the Browns listened, and the Seahawks won the game. So it's, what can I say? That the organization at least knows when to take no for an answer.
I guess I should have expected a joke at the expense of the Browns starting quarterback who I brought up. So, touche, sir. Well played. That was nice.
All right, so let's get into it. I mentioned a little bit about the offense, and I've really been focused on the offense this whole year. And as I look at my notes, I'm going to make sure I don't kind of preempt anything that I was going to say later. But I don't know where I'm at. I've been harping on Shane Waldron all season. I mean, let's see. The team, as a team, and we're talking, this includes Geno Smith's negative 3-yard rushing average. This includes D. Eskridge's negative 5-yard rushing average. The team itself averaged 6.7 yards per carry. Our two running backs, Charbonnet, averaged 10.6 yards per carry, and Kenneth Walker 8.3 yards per carry, yet our offensive play selection only had 13, 14 actual called plays and none. Okay, there were some, but the focus completely went away from it when the Seahawks got behind or the Browns got close. So it's the MO that we said before. What do you do? What do you do? And I think part of it has to go with my initial reaction, my main takeaway when it comes to the offense of the Seahawks is that Shane Waldron might just be the best play designer in the NFL while also being the worst
The
play
worst play
caller
call.
in the NFL. Because some of those plays are just designed beautifully. Just
They are.
a beautiful play design. The route combinations. I mean, they set the defense up to fail later in the game. There's great use of rub routes, those illegal screens, but every team does them. Probably the most beautiful designed plays in this game were by the Seahawks, with the exception of Njoku's touchdown by the Browns, where they had that double screen action on both sides with Njoku going down the seam, and the defense just has to roll the dice and just hope that they covered the right spot for that play.
Right.
That was a beautiful play. But
It was.
other than that, I don't know what to do with Shane Waldron. I think maybe he needs to go volunteer with some Pop Warner teams because you don't have the talent in a lot of youth. So you're not going to have a quarterback who can sling it all over the field. You're not going to have 5 wide receivers and depth at tight end that you can set up weird formations. No, you're going to have one athletic kid who's your running back who you're going to lean on,
Design
and
every play
the
for. Yeah.
couple kind of athletic kids that will give that one guy a breather, and then one of those guys is going to be your quarterback who can turn around and hand the ball to him. So he almost needs to go back to basics in a way and learn. He does all this exotic stuff great, but he fails in the fundamental aspects. And so I mainly say it as a joke, but maybe not. I mean, there's something to be said for cleanly executing plays that have worked in offensive football since the game was developed. Like there are plays that still work that have been around since before the forward pass was a legal play. And I just think he forgot that the running game really is a key and essential part of football.
Yeah, look, I agree that we didn't have enough run mixed in, especially when Seahawks weren't able to sustain drives. I think part of that is we seem to get behind the sticks pretty quickly when we come out to pass. When that's the first play is a passing play, and as soon as that doesn't work, then all bets are off, and it's let's start whipping the ball around again, and let's not try any more of these route combinations. We're just gonna we're gonna go 5 wide or 4 wide. Sorry, we'll go 4 wide, and we'll have the 2 outside guys go on out routes, and the 2 inside guys do a crosser, and that's gonna be the play call. And hopefully we were able to move the sticks, and obviously we never do. Yeah, it's frustrating because, and we've said it before, right? The part of the game that's scripted that every team does, sets up, okay, first drive that we're gonna do these 5 or 6 plays and see if we can get in the end zone. The second drive we'll do these 5 or 6 plays and see if we can get in the end zone. Those seem to work out really, really well. They're well designed play calls. There's misdirection. There's pre-snap movement. They work great, and you saw it again here. The Seahawks went their first offensive possession right down the field and scored a touchdown. Second offensive possession, yes, it was a short field, but again, right down the field to score a touchdown. Then we get out of that, and he no longer is able to rely on the plays that we've designed for the thing, and he has to do some situational play calling, and that does not seem to be Shane Waldron's strength. I don't know what the answer here is because I don't see a guy like Pete Carroll going away from his offensive coordinator mid-season.
Well, and let's get this straight. Shane Waldron is an asset to a football team.
Yes.
Like, he has a great offensive mind. I just don't think he needs to have play calling duties. And that's where I kind of differ in my thinking. I think he can get there, but right now he wants to be Texas Tech from the Mike Leach era and some of these other things that don't really work in the NFL, right? So I don't know. I don't know what the Seahawks need to do, but they're not a championship team if we can't call the right plays in the right situations, even though we have some great talent on this team. And they really need to pull it together coming into the meat of this season. And we'll get more on that later on in this show, but it's scary if you look ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we talked a little bit about this already, but getting into our 5 keys that we talked about last week about the game. Well, let's just talk about it, guy. Let's go into number 1. Stick with what works. Now, we said this because, again, it seems like every game we have these offensive outbursts early on or sometimes later, but never throughout the entire game, right? It's always in these little chunks, and then there's this big stretch of what seems to be offensive ineptitude, and it looks like the play calling is completely different during those situations. We've been touching on this the entire so far most of this podcast, and we've done it certainly most of this podcast history talking about Shane Waldron and what that is. And I still don't know if it is his situational play calling that's the problem, or if it's him not being able to see the field because he's on it the entire time. Either way, something needs to change. Because if we go into the rest of the schedule, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead again, playing like this, we're not going to win these close games because they're not going to be close games. The Browns, again, we already said it, backup running backs, backup quarterback.
Great defense.
Great defense. And so we had to score when we had opportunities, and luckily we did when we were in the red zone. Thank goodness we weren't coming away with no points in the red zone this game. But if we're going against an offense that can, put up 30 plus points a game, which we will be very soon, are we going to be able to keep pace if the offense stalls out like it does or seems to be doing in the middle of games? Again, we had 2 full quarters where we didn't score. We didn't even sniff the end zone. I don't even know if we had, do we even have more than 3 consecutive plays at a time for 2 quarters?
Yes, because the offense had 4 3-and-outs. So that means over the stretch of 7 consecutive third down attempts that failed for the offense, 4 of them were 3-and-outs. So there were a few first downs that were gained over that stretch. But yeah, that was halfway through the second through mid-4th was that stretch. And that's going to kill your momentum as
if you can't put a scoring drive together for 30 minutes of a 60-minute game, you're probably not winning that game. We did this game, but I think more often than not, that's not a winning formula. And so what is it? Like, why are we going away from these, multiple tight end sets, off balance formations along the line, multiple backs? Why are we going away from this in the middle of the game?
That's a great question.
So yeah, we do this every week. We talk about these are our keys. Did they do it or not? And if we're doing a pass fail here, they failed. They went away from what was working for most of the game, and then finally came back to it somewhat late. Even though I think that 2-minute drill at the end was still a little closer to air raid than it was ground and pound, but
that was not a ground and pound situation. So no. I don't have a problem with calling those type of plays in that situation. Now, maybe, look at the entire game when you're trying to figure out how you should call plays, and Shane Waldron might need to go brush up on some tape of himself and see if he can improve on his past performances. Spoiler alert, he can. As far as number 1 goes, stick with what works. I gave this a no. We did not achieve that key. There were a lot of spread out formations, a lot of 11 personnel. Shane Waldron salivating. I mean, he got a potential weapon back in D. Eskridge. So he had Metcalf and Lockett. And then he had Njigba and Eskridge. Oh, I can get, and then Bobo coming in situations where, he could be used. And I think he might have been that, that kid, that 8-year-old who got too many toys for his birthday and doesn't really know how to use them. Maybe got one too many Lego sets, got some of the pieces mixed in. So he's trying to build, the castle, but doesn't have the right pieces. That seems what's going on is he's trying to get everybody involved, and
which is great.
That's not what works.
Yeah, but he's not. But it's. I love the idea of look. We can talk about that final drive again, where I think Geno completed 5 passes to 5 different players, and we scored that touchdown. And I love that. That was great. But we kept the offense or the defense on their heels. They were always moving backwards. That's all good, but we need to be able to find a way to grind out a win when we have a 14-point lead. So yeah. Yeah, I'm just tongue tied because this seems like the problem every week this year.
Every single week, yes. We have had this same concern. Maybe not week 3. I want to say that game that was the Panthers, correct?
Yeah.
That was a really good game. The game plan was great going into it. The play selection was fantastic throughout that game. That should be the game that they go back and watch in how they should approach the rest of the season. Heavy usage of tight ends, relying on running backs and formations to help, because you're not going to spread out NFL defenses. It doesn't work at this level. That's why spread and air raid coaches don't coach in the
have
NFL.
Success here. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ask Cliff Kingsbury how that's working out for him. But I don't know. We can't keep on beating this dead horse, right? We've got to find a way to push forward. And my advice to the Seahawks are, Waldron is a fantastic play designer. He's probably one of the best in the NFL. He needs a little work on play calling. So maybe get somebody in there with him to be like, you sure you don't want to call run play? I mean, our running backs are averaging over 8 yards per carry. And we just had 7 consecutive third downs that we were unable to convert. So maybe we should run the ball and set up a more manageable third down. But maybe somebody he trusts to say that, because apparently common sense is not abundant.
Is Sean McVay free? Let's keep it going. I know because I know we could talk about this all day, but we got 5 other keys. Number 2 was Geno can't force it. This has been the issue with these interceptions of late, is that Geno seems to want to throw the ball into tight windows and not do what he's really good at, which is take what the defense is giving you. He left a lot of guys wide open in this game, and especially on those 2 picks. He threw it to the exact wrong guy, maybe the only guy on the field that really couldn't catch the ball. Now, the second pick we can talk a little bit about. That was a defensive player making a big defensive player making an incredibly athletic move and coming away with that not only tip pass but pick himself. But that first interception was just Geno deciding to throw the ball, 1, when the receiver wasn't looking for it, and 2, when he wasn't ready for it, ready to throw the ball. I mean, you look at that, it looked like it was supposed to be a 5-step drop play, and he threw it on step 3. It wasn't set, shoulders weren't square. He just went, wait, and right to a defender. And that's been the thing. He tends to get to a point in the game where he isn't going through the motions that you need to go, the things you need to do in order, to set yourself up for success. There are steps, and in this case, there's literally steps in your drop back where you go. The routes are designed a certain way. so that when you take it, whether it's a 3, 5, or 7-step drop, so that you're seeing these routes develop when they're supposed to develop. And if you don't throw with timing on those kind of routes, these things are going to happen. And this seems to be the thing that Geno Smith keeps getting out of this rhythm and doing in the worst times in games. I mean, when the offense is chugging along really well, and then all of a sudden he just starts trying to force these passes. Um, and yeah, I mean, yes, this was a good defense, but we are going to be facing plenty of good defenses for the rest of the season, and Geno has got to get this figured out.
Yeah, and I mean, there are other things that can mess with that. This was a really good defense with
Yeah,
a fantastic defensive star in Myles Garrett, who was
sure.
out there. He still had a good game. So it's not. We had a lot of guys who struggled in pass protection. So Jason Peters was rotated in. He had a fantastic run block grade by PFF of 88, but his pass blocking grade was a 36. Once again, 41 years old, I believe, knocking the rust off his first game back this season. Let's see how that happens. Anthony Bradford, right? What was the scouting report on him? Great run blocker.
Not
a great pass blocker. He's had games this season where that was flipped, where his pass blocking grade was graded as his highest grade, and he has had some great games these past couple games. Well, overall, he had a 72 PFF grade, which is
just fine. Solid.
This is just fine. Yeah, solid. But he had a 90 run block grade and a 27 pass block grade. Which again,
not quite so solid.
No. And that also kind of reinforces some of the things we were saying earlier about play selection. Watching the game, seeing that in the passing game, our entire right side, because Stone Forsythe fared better, but not much better in his grading. In fact, he had the highest run block grade of the game at a 94.6. So let's give him credit where credit is due. Stone Forsythe really played hard in the run game. And then he's graded out at a 62 in his pass blocking. And he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker.
Or at least throughout his career, he has been, yeah.
Yes. Seeing that the right side of the line was at times a liability in this game.
Yeah, overmatched,
in the past game.
For sure.
That's even more reason to lean on the run game a little bit more to suck that defense in. Now you might be able to hit a screen or hit some of these quick outs to those quick wide receivers.
Anything but a screen.
I don't advocate the Seahawks ever run a screen, but they were mildly successful at it this game.
The winning play of the game was a screen. So
that is true. And in fact, it was one of the 3.5 screens that actually worked in this game for the Seahawks.
3.5.
So one of those was
wow,
like 4 or 5 yards, and I counted it as half of an effective screen because I want to say there were 10 yards to go and they got like 4 yards. And so I kind of gave them partial credit for getting half of the yardage they for that down. Anyway, I have a weird way that I chart, and they got half credit for that. So
yeah, look, I'm like, I think what we're kind of getting at here with this is we can see during the game. We're watching the game. We can see during the game where the weak points are as the game goes on and where we think they need to make those adjustments. And this team is not making those adjustments. Yes, Myles Garrett is a game wrecker, but we knew that, or we should have known that going in. And when we see him line up on the right side, well, then let's motion a guy over there to help out, whether that be Jake Bobo, who's a great run blocker, or one of our tight ends. If we don't have tight ends on the field, which should never ever be the case, again, there should never be a play in our wheelhouse that has anything less than 11 personnel. Just never. There should always be at least one tight end on the field. But to help Geno Smith out, because yes, some of the bad throws were because he was being rushed, but there were other times when he had plenty of time and was just not setting himself. And I think I know Geno wants to build on what he did last year and prove that he's the man. Look, Gino, you convinced us last year that you were a good enough quarterback to help to be the starting quarterback on this team moving forward. They didn't bring anybody else in, buddy. There is nobody chomping. I mean, yes, I know that Love is or yeah, Love
Lock.
Lock. Thank you. I'm sorry, Drew. I really am. Drew is still back there. He's not supplanting you, man. Your job is secure. Don't worry about it. Just go out there and facilitate the way that you did last year, because that is the player that we need for the rest of the season. The guy that is just going to get the ball to our playmakers, not make the big mistakes, not try and make the big plays, occasionally run when he has to, which is fine because Gino's a great scrambler and he's good on the move. His play action passes or his boots, he's great at those. We should do more of those plays, but don't think you've got to do it all yourself, Gino, because you don't. And honestly, I don't know that you can, buddy. um, I think Gino is a fine quarterback. I think he can be the quarterback of this team for a long time. But he's got to realize that he doesn't need to be the star out there. And I don't know if that's what's going on. I don't know if that's his mindset. I don't know. I know that he's got things built into his contract where he needs to hit certain points to make more money. And look, I want Gino to make all the money he possibly can this year. But stop forcing it. Just go out there and play your game, man. Let the rest of the team do what they do. You don't have to be the star.
Yeah. I think he had one more pass that should have been intercepted, like right to the corner.
Yes, he
should
did.
Have been a pick six, and the guy dropped it.
Yeah.
So thankfully, the guy dropped it because that would have been.
Because otherwise, the Seahawks don't come away with a win there. No. So again, Gino, you get a failing grade this week for forcing it, man.
All right, our third key to success is don't get cute. This kind of goes back to some of the stuff we were saying about Shane Waldron. From a cute play calling factor, he did a great job. From a situational play calling factor, not so much. But there wasn't a lot of weird things, stuff that was cute, like running out of the shotgun formation off on the half-yard line. That would be considered cute. So funny about this, Jake Bobo's touchdown happens. I immediately get a text from Adam, and he's like, "So, was that cute?" And I had to think about it because a wide receiver getting the ball, out of motion, especially a slow wide receiver.
No, a guy that ran it. Remember, Jake Bobo's 40 time was 4.9, guys. 4.9 seconds.
So, and if you look at that play design, it is actually designed to go outside of those blockers. But those blockers were not getting on their guy. And so Jake Bobo made the correct decision to put his foot in the dirt, turn it north and south, and then he got that touchdown. Great effort by Jake Bobo.
We need more Bobo.
So I said, no, that's not cute. But there's a caveat to it. All season, Jake Bobo has been in that motion, right? Pre-snap motion comes across the formation, and he ends up actually being a lead blocker.
Yep.
And he's been very effective on this play.
He is the third most effective run blocker in the league.
Yeah, coming into this game.
Regardless of position.
Yeah. And it was primarily off of this play, right? Coming in motion, he comes in, he clears out the hole. Walker can attribute a couple of his touchdowns to Jake Bobo playing fullback. So because of that, because they set that up, that's why this play was not considered cute, because we're using this action that people have seen, that they've scouted on tape. Everybody thought Walker was going to get this ball. And all of a sudden, here's Jake Bobo stretching it out, finding the hole, turning it upfield for a touchdown. So there you go. I'm going to say Seahawks get a passing grade. Shane Waldron, you get a passing grade for not being too cute in the play calling.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I'll give him. I'll defer to you and give him a passing grade here. I think had we had more opportunities to see extended plays and get down to the red zone, he might have had a few more of those kind of cutesy plays that I know Robbie hates. But sure, I'll give him a passing grade here. Let's give one to the offense for not messing it up.
Essentially. All right, our fourth key to success dealt with the Nwosu injury, right? Next
Yeah,
man up. Who's going to be that guy that steps up? And the defense in their current construction on Sunday uh, did a serviceable job, right?
yeah,
They rotated guys through. Frank Clark came in and his kind of return to the team. He had one tackle, obviously still getting used to this particular defense. I thought he played okay, played pretty well in that role. Darrell Taylor took the majority of those snaps. He played well. I think Derek Hall got in that rotation as well,
he did.
not
Derek Hall had a
just
couple
spelling
plays. Yep.
Mafe, which is what he's been doing. So those guys worked, kind of rotation by committee. We talked about the trade that happened on Monday for Leonard Williams from the Giants. We talked about that extensively during our draft deadline day live
Trade
event.
deadline day.
Thank you. You're right. The trade deadline event.
And that's up on YouTube right now if people want to go check that out.
And my point for that was it provides flexibility on the defensive line. So I think what's going to happen, we might not see 70% plays out of Darrell Taylor, which is good. I think that sets Darrell Taylor up to succeed.
Which is, fine.
But the answer to that wasn't to bring Frank Clark in and have him play 50% of downs. No. So what this sets up for me is I think we're going to see some of Draymond Jones kicking out to stand up to be an edge setting, big presence at times outside. He stood up a lot when he was with Denver. He can do it. Kind of play that big end. We may see
the return of the Red Bryant Elephants.
He's not quite. I mean, Red Bryant was a mountain of a human. In fact, if Red Bryant wants to come on this podcast, we would welcome him with open arms. And
I don't know that we'd be able to get him around him, but yes, we would.
So not the same type of big end, maybe a Michael Bennett style big end.
Okay.
Which I think could work. Get Reed and Leonard and they're in the middle, and then have Mafe and Draymond Jones on the other side. And then you can utilize your linebackers inside to kind of flow with the play. Bring Jamal Adams down on that big side to play that edge defender if they get around that bigger end. There's a lot you can do. They could even go back to some cover 3 sort of stuff from the past with that same setup. Who knows? Just put a little wrinkle in. There's a ton they can do if they're able to move those guys around. So I think they want to get all those players on the field at the same time. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is for Mario Edwards to come off the field, which he is playing lights out for this team this year.
Hard to do.
Or, I mean, what do you got to do? So next man up,
Draymond,
yeah, you're not going to. You're going to get rotation, which is going to keep
those
guys fresh. But yeah, as far as this game goes, defense 100% gets the passing game for next man up. And I bet they wish they had that rotational player because this defense was gassed this game.
Oh, yes. Yes, they were. Look, I'm going to go a little bit different way. I'm giving them a passing grade here for next man up. But I'm going to say Boye Mafe is the guy that has stepped up here. And go back and watch him in this game. And just watch 53 terrorize the quarterback the entire time. He had his 5th consecutive game with a sack, which ties the Seahawks record. I'm not sure who set that. I apologize. I probably should have looked that up if I was going to bring up this wonderful point here, and I didn't. But a sack in 5 consecutive games is tied for the Seahawks franchise record. I'm hoping that he breaks it this next week. Boye Mafe has been incredible. I mean, he was already having a good year. But I think now that he kind of is stepping up as that main outside pass rusher with Nwosu out, he's taking this role and running with it. The man has been amazing over the last 2 games. Look, I think Darrell Taylor is a fantastic pass rusher, and I'm not taking anything away from him. He's definitely coming in and having to play more time. He's still his motor's revving, and he's playing every second of the downs that he's out there. But Mafe has definitely been the standout since Nwosu went down. So I'm going to give the guys a passing grade here, but I do think that this game left me with more questions than answers, and partly, mostly on offense, but I think even with the defense, because we've got a new piece coming in with Leonard Williams. We've got one piece that that we and then another one with Frank Clark, who's kind of working his way into this team. This is still uh, a process, and but I have a lot of faith in Clint Hurt, which I could not have said at the beginning of this season. Um, and now I trust that he's going to find a way to get these guys in the positions, and it might take a couple of games before we really see what this defense is going to look like down the stretch. But I hope that in the meantime, the guys that can play like they played today and make the plays that they need to. Jamal Adams, beautiful header. Julian Love coming down with that clutch interception. So yeah, the defense gets a passing grade and a bonus this week.
Yeah, I actually think that Mafe is going to benefit the most from Leonard Williams coming into this defensive line. Teams are going to focus a lot more on double teaming on the inside because Jaron Reed has been highly effective. And now you're adding Leonard Williams in there. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have some double teams inside, and that's going to let Mafe be one-on-one on the edge. And we're going to get to see him just fully bloom into the player that he could be this year. And we're seeing him have just a fantastic sophomore season here in the NFL.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, our fifth key to success was the third phase of the game. I thought going into this game, special teams was going to have a real effect on this game. And it was more than I thought it was going to. Listen, Michael Dixon bailed out the offense several times during this game.
At least 4 times.
At least 4 times, yes. One of those was a touchback. It happens. But averaged 54 yards gross punting average and then 44 net because they had a couple returns and then had that touchback. But I mean, he is a weapon and we use him as such. And then how about Myers? He has been perfect since the bye week. Has he finally been able to break this odd year curse?
Man, let's knock on some wood real quick. I certainly hope so. I love the fact that Myers is playing like he did last year now, and just being automatic. I love the one I don't have to worry about whether or not Jason Myers is gonna make the kick. Yeah, I hope he keeps it going. I mean, kudos to him. Way to shut up the haters. Just keep it going, man. Just keep it going, because we're gonna need him down the stretch.
Oh, 100%. Okay, so we had a bonus key to success, and that was this one goes to 12. This is all about the 12s. And listen, I think the 12s showed up in this game. Sure, we didn't have a bunch of false starts, which has sort of been the metric in the past. But sold out stadium, over 68,000 fans there. People weren't leaving when the Browns got ahead late and the offense seemed like they couldn't, move downhill in a snowstorm. Like they
move anything.
They couldn't move anything. But the fans were there. They showed up. They stayed engaged, cheering on their feet. Fans, hey, you're the best. Seattle has some of the best fans in the league, if not the best fans in the league. And so
they have we can say it, they have the best fans in the league, I think, bar none. Suck at Arrowhead Stadium. But yeah, look, the 12s I think are what kept the defense alive late in the fourth quarter. Because they looked gassed. But man, when the defense came out on that field, especially after that interception happened, the crowd was on its feet the rest of the game. The last 4 minutes of that game, no butts were in seats. Everyone was on their feet. So kudos to the 12 for bringing it, especially when the team needed it. I love to see it. Look, I wish that we could. I hope we get to see a game where the energy that they had after that opening drive and the energy they had on that final drive can last the entire game, because it's happened before. We've seen plenty of games in that stadium where the 12s have been on their feet and raucous the entire time, and the team in the end, the energy just kept feeding and building and building. And I hope we get to see that with this year. We haven't yet, and it's because the offense has made it really hard for us to do that. Because when we have drive after drive in the middle of the game, just spin out, it's really tough for especially. I mean, look, I had a hard time doing it at home by myself. I can't imagine what it's like when you're surrounded by people and your guts all come crashing down when Geno throws a second pick. So kudos to the 12 for staying with it and continue to cheer these guys on, because I really do think that they were a factor, especially in the fourth quarter.
All right. Let's talk about the real kind of buzz coming into this game.
The
How awesome
star.
the star of this game were those throwback
Absolutely.
uniforms.
Dude, I'll tell you what, I love our current uniforms. I'm a big proponent of the Wolf Grays that I know we went away from this year. Not a big fan of the action green, but I never was in any of its iterations throughout the years of the Seahawks. But I gotta say, as much as I love our uniforms, our dark blues and our whites, these throwback uniforms are so gorgeous, so clean, so beautiful. I love this color scheme. Like I mean, there's nostalgia to it, but honestly, if we stuck with these uniforms for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be mad. I I love it. They look great.
Yeah, they look great. They're awesome. Once again, Adam and I are both on the longer side of, middle-aged. But so nostalgia is a thing. It's a real thing. I love
Sure.
these uniforms. I liked them before. The jersey that I used to wear 2 games was a Steve Largent jersey. So that
Hey, I think it
same
might be
color
hanging
scheme,
up behind you, as a matter of fact.
it's right there that my fat self can't fit into anymore. But so it's right there. But yeah, I love these uniforms. And just like you, I wish we could keep these uniforms from here on out. Like at least half of our games, let's wear throwbacks.
Yeah.
I love them. How about you though? Didn't you order yourself a Jake Bobo throwback jersey?
I do. I do. It should hope so. Look, we kind of broke this news before, but I'm gonna reiterate it again. I'm gonna be at the Dallas game. I'm gonna be watching us play in Jerry World, and we're gonna be playing with our throwback uniforms. We've decided that they were so good that we're gonna bring them back for another game this year, and it's gonna be a road game, and I cannot wait because I ordered and I know this is a little preemptive because he's only been on the roster for less than a season, but I think Jake Bobo is here to stay. And I think he's here to stay still much so. And he's my favorite player right now. So I have ordered a throwback number 19 Jake Bobo jersey that I will be rocking in Dallas come November 30th.
Outstanding. All right. So how about these games coming up? I mean, we have a really tough game, and this isn't the game preview. We'll get more into that when we do our preview show tomorrow. But we have a tough game coming up in Baltimore. And then we hit that meat of our schedule here in a couple weeks where it is juggernaut after juggernaut and just tough games ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, we still haven't seen the 49ers yet this year. Yeah, they're reeling a little bit, but that's still a really, really tough team and a really, really tough defense. I'll tell you what, Baltimore looked really great this week too. They had a statement game for sure. This is going to be tough. Down the stretch is going to be tough. So look, especially coming off this week, and to talk about highs and lows. I was just coming off my Jake Bobo high, and now I'm back to trepidation. The next 9 weeks are going to be really, really tough on the Seahawks. We have, we play, like I said, the 49ers twice. We have the Ravens coming up, Dallas, the Eagles still. This week, I maybe talk to Pete and say, hey, let's go back to 2-a-days, man, because we need to make sure that we are ready to go. We cannot have this game that we had this week next week. Can't have it. We won't win. It won't even be close. We will lose by a blowout if we have the same game, because yes, I think our defense is going to have moments against the Ravens offense, but Lamar Jackson is looking like MVP Lamar Jackson, and he has weapons on that team. So yeah, look, I think our defense will come to play. It's the offense that I'm really scared. And again, we'll have questions because this defense, you'll get moving pieces, and we got a new guy coming in that hasn't been installed yet. Leonard Williams is going to have his first game as a Seahawk in Baltimore next week. Frank Clark still kind of finding his way in the scheme. No more Nwosu. There's a lot of questions, and and the offense, the Ravens defense is playing really well, and this offense still, I don't think, has figured out what it wants to be. And we confidence is a big thing in this league. Um, that's why any team can. That's why they have the phrase "any given Sunday" because any team can win. Sometimes it's just about attitude, and if you don't know who you are as an offense, and I do not think this team does, it's really hard to have any kind of swagger when you're going into somebody else's home.
Yeah, my preseason prediction had them losing this game coming up. Now, that's not a spoiler alert for my game prediction that I'll give in our next game preview episode. To tell you the truth, I actually have no clue what I'm going to predict for that game. I've been going back and forth between a couple scores, and I'm not sure what I want to do yet. But preseason, I had them losing in Baltimore. Just one of those going cross country. Right? Yeah. There's a lot of other factors playing into it. I had them losing the Bengals game preseason. I had them losing one of the 49ers game, the Dallas game, and the Eagles game. So I think the team is better than that. The team is better than I thought they were preseason. But we need to see it, and this week's going to be a huge test. So we do have a big stretch coming in. Let's see, we have Ravens this week, Commanders the next week, Rams the following week, and then we hit that just 4-week stretch of top of the conference talent. So
yeah,
this is a big test because this will tell us what to expect in 4 weeks when we hit that stretch. So there's one more question for you, Adam.
Oh no.
So Adam is a big fantasy football player, multiple leagues.
Yeah,
I retired from fantasy a few years ago, 5-6 years ago now. I believe you traded for Andrews in one of your leagues.
I did trade for Mark Andrews. Am I going to be playing him against the Seahawks defense? After the game David Njoku had, yes, I will be playing Mark Andrews against the Seahawks defense. I won't be happy about it. I'm also starting the Seahawks defense in that exact same league because I was like, you know what? I've got Jason Myers as my kicker and the Seahawks defense. I'm just going to let him ride the rest of the season. So I'm not happy about it, but I am going to be riding with Mark Andrews as my tight end next week. I'll tell you this. I expect the Ravens to put up some points. That's fine if Mark Andrews is the guy doing it. I think that's kind of where the Seahawks tend to have a little bit. I mean, it's as great as our safeties are and our linebackers are. For some reason, we still have a little problem with tight ends in the middle of the field. But if we can find a way to make Lamar Jackson beat us with his arm, I'll be happy.
Because all right. For those of you,
yeah, go. I was just gonna say what I don't want to see is Lamar Jackson running for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, for those of you who play fantasy out there, who want to jump on YouTube and leave us a comment under the video from the recording of this episode, go ahead and leave us a message. Do you think Adam made the right choice, giving up George Kittle for Mark Andrews in a
it was a 1-for-1 straight up trade?
Yeah. Hey, listen, going into the fantasy world, Andrews puts up a ton of points. I get that. I would have a hard time pulling the trigger, giving up Kittle, because I believe the week that you traded him, he scored 3 touchdowns.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. He put and funny enough, I was actually playing the guy that I traded him to that week. I still won barely, but yeah. Which look, I don't like having any players in my division on my team. It's just a thing. I don't draft Arizona players. I don't draft San Francisco players. I don't draft Rams players. Which is the only reason why I didn't draft Puka Nacua before the season started, because I wanted to in several leagues, but it's just a rule I have. And I ended up picking up Kittle for 1 week because Cole Kmet wasn't doing the job, and I flipped him for Mark Andrews. I have no regrets.
Outstanding. You have no regrets about your fantasy trades. How about this game against the Browns? What are your final thoughts on this game against the Browns?
My final thoughts are that I'm again, much like I have been for most of this season, I'm coming away from a game with more questions than answers. And it's kind of funny how this is flipped for us because I think going into the season, I didn't have questions on offense. My questions were all about the defense because it was all, we revamped the defensive line. We obviously had a pretty porous defense last season, especially in the run game. So that was where I was at. I was like, you know what? I got to see from the defense. And now I'm at this point in this season, almost halfway through, where I have very few questions on defense. I mean, obviously, a few questions coming into this game or coming out of this game. Is Frank Clark going to be playing more downs? He looked pretty good. I think he had 3 pressures this game, only 1 tackle. But I mean, defensive ends, that's not really what they do. It's about putting pressure on the quarterback, not, you but and now it's the offense. I still don't think we have an offensive identity, and it's odd in a Pete Carroll led Seahawks team not to know what the offensive identity is. And I don't know what the offensive identity is. Still,
For me, it goes back to something I said at the beginning of this episode, and that was this game boiled down to one good quarter and a final drive. You're not going to win a ton of ball games in the National Football League if you can only put together one good quarter and one drive at the end of the game. They did, and it worked out in our favor, and I'm stoked for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Once again, second in the NFC, leading the division. I mean, this is a great place to be at 2 months into the season. So
yeah, it is.
You have to be excited for the Seahawks. You have to be excited for the outlook. We're going to get to see what happens in this game this week, and that will tell us sort of what the team needs to do over the following 3 weeks to get ready for those premium high caliber opponents that we're going to have. So this is a tough game coming up, but this game will bring the Seahawks more blessings than curses, barring injury, knock on wood, because it will expose things that we can work on and work for the future. So I'm excited to see what's going on. I'm excited about this team. I think this defense, despite playing 37 minutes in this game, had a strong showing. They showed people that even though one of their leaders, one of their best players went down, that they were able to respond and still go after other teams the way that they've been doing it all year. So hats off to the defense. Offense, you need to step it up. And I think this team can get it done. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for listening to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. Whether you're out there in the podcast world or you're watching us on YouTube through replay of this particular live stream, thank you for sharing your time with us. And thank you for sharing any time that you will spend with us in the future. As always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.